Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. So we'll starting from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 18th verse and 19th chapter, 18th chapter, 19th verse today, 118-19. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhakti bhavati naistiki namo vishnu padaya krishna prasthaya bhutale srimate bhakti vedanta swami nityanamine namaste saraswati deve gauravani pracharine nirvishesha shunyavadi paschata desatarini jai shri krishna chaitanya prabhu nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so we're starting from first canto, 18th chapter, text number 19. Let me read from my book. Okay. Uta punargrinato nama tasya mahattamaikanta parayanasya yo ananta sektir bhagavan ananto mahadgunatvad yamanantam ahuhu. Word for word meaning. Kutaha, what to say? Punaha, again. Grinataha, one who chants. Nama, holy name. Tasya, his. Mahatama, great devotees. Ekanta, exclusive. Parayanasya, of one who takes shelter of. Yaha, he who. Ananta is unlimited. Shaktihi, potency. Bhagwan, the personality of Godhead. Anantaha, immeasurable. Mahat, great. Gunatvat, on account of such attributes. Yam, whom? Anantam, by the name Ananta. Ahuhu is called. Translation, purport by Sri Prabhupada. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. And what to speak of those who are under the direction of great devotees, chanting the holy name of the unlimited, who has unlimited potency. The personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency, and transcendental by attributes, is called the Ananta, unlimited. Purport. The Dvijabandhu are the less intelligent, uncultured men born of higher caste, put forward many arguments against the lower caste men becoming Brahmanas in this life. They argue that birth in a family of Sudras or less than Sudras is made possible by one's previous sinful acts, and that one therefore has to complete the terms of disadvantages due to lower birth. And to answer these false logicians, Srimad Bhagavatam asserts that one who chants the holy name of the Lord under the direction of a pure devotee can at once get free from the disadvantages due to a lower caste birth. A pure devotee of the Lord does not commit any offense while chanting the holy name of the Lord. There are 10 different offenses in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. To chant the holy name under the direction of a pure devotee is offenseless chanting. Offenseless chanting of the holy name of the Lord is transcendental. Okay, I need to go down there. Offenseless chanting of the holy name offenseless chanting of the holy name of the Lord is transcendental. And therefore, such chanting can at once purify one from the effects of all kinds of previous sins. This offenseless chanting indicates that one has fully understood the transcendental nature of the holy name and has thus surrendered unto the Lord. Transcendentally, the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself are identical, being absolute. The holy name of the Lord is as powerful as the Lord. The Lord is the all-powerful personality of Godhead, and he has innumerable names which are all non-different from him and are equally powerful also. In the last word of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asserts that one who surrenders fully unto him is protected from all sins by the grace of the Lord. Since his name, since his name and he himself are identical, the holy name of the Lord can protect the devotee from all effects of sins. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord can undoubtedly deliver one from the disadvantages of a lower caste birth. The Lord's unlimited power is extended on and on by the unlimited expansion of the devotees and incarnations. And thus every devotee of the Lord and incarnations can also be equally surcharged with the potency of the Lord. Wow. I'm just underlining this one. Since the devotee is surcharged with the potency of the Lord, even fractionally, the disqualification due to lower birth cannot stand in the way. Wow, such a beautiful purport by Sri Prabhupada. Okay. So let us look at briefly the context. So we are in the 18th chapter, where the chapter title is Parikshit cursed by Brahmana boy. So in the beginning of this chapter, we heard about how Parikshit Maharaj was born. Parikshit Maharaj was getting close to the death and his dealings with Kali in a very brief summary fashion. And then the sages of Naimisharanya, who are talking to Sutta Goswami in this whole canto so far, as an Naimisharanya, they express their eagerness. They want to hear Krishna Katha more like that. Please share more like that. And then after they express their eagerness like that, Sutta Goswami responds to their eagerness. And he glorifies his spiritual master first, and then he glorifies Krishna. He glorifies the power of, that is the section where we are in. The previous verse, he said, serving, following, and conversing with great souls cleanses oneself of the disqualifications arising from low birth. So he was telling about himself also, because he got the association of great saintly persons. Through that, he also got purified, like that is described in the previous verse. Now, coming to this verse is glorifying the chanting of the whole name. How the chanting of the whole name is so powerful, especially when we do it in the direction of a pure devotee, spiritual master. So that's the main point here. So now, if you notice the verse itself, what we are hearing is, if you, first of all, just by the association, previous verse was telling, 18th verse, let me go back to 18th verse. 18th verse is saying, just by serving a great soul, serving devotees, one can be cleansed of all disqualifications. That is the previous verse. Now, not only serving in the association, we take guidance also from them, and we chant the holy name in their direction. Then we can imagine the great fortune we can get, like that is describing. And that way all disqualifications will go away. Disqualification is talking about is lower birth. Lower birth means, like Prabhupada is explaining in the verse, that people who are born in a Sudra family, or people who are born in a family that is not currently practicing, or was not practicing any Vedic regulations, or they live in a very uncivilized way, like that. So many points Prabhupada makes the purport. We'll go through one at a time. So Prabhupada starts the purport with Vijabandhu. So if you remember, this Vijabandhu word was introduced even in the first chapter of first canto also, where Sri Prabhupada describes ordinary, when we take birth in this world, where that is our first birth from our mother, number one. Number two, when we approach a spiritual master and he gives us the initiation. In Vedic culture, the initiation is primarily second initiation. What we call it as second initiation today, Brahman Diksha. When the spiritual master gives the Brahman thread and he gives initiation, then a person is said to be Dvija. Okay, so Dvija means twice born, like that. So first is ordinary person is not even considered like a, unless somebody practices some basic regulation, they're not even considered human being. But then they become Dvija, where they're initiated by spiritual master. Then they become qualified to read, study scriptures under the guidance of spiritual master, like that. And then once they study scriptures, they develop the knowledge of the scriptures. So remember when they got initiated, they are called Dvija. Then they study the scriptures, they get knowledge from Vedas. Then they are called as a Brahmana. So this Brahmana, when he further practice, after getting this knowledge from Vedas, when he practices that knowledge, when he comes to the position of realization of the Supreme Lord, when he comes to the position of serving the Supreme Lord, then that is a Vaishnava position. So basically Dvija, Brahmana, and he can become a Vaishnava, like that. So when somebody has already become Vaishnava, they are beyond Brahmana also. They're above Brahmana also. So that means if somebody is born in a Sudra birth today, that means they're born in a family that are not following Vedic regulations, for example, that is not a disqualification, because they take shelter of a nice spiritual master, pure Buddhist spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master. When they take shelter of such a spiritual master and follow their guidance in chanting the holy name, they can be elevated to Brahmana and Vaishnava also. So that is an important principle we need to learn. And another principle stated in a different way from Srimad Bhagavad Gita is that Krishna says the caste system is based on guna and karma, not based on the birth. I may be born to parents who are Sudra, I may be born to parents who are Brahmana. That's not the most important criteria. Most important criteria is what qualities I have. Do I have qualities of a Brahmana, or do I have qualities of a Shudra? And then what kind of occupation or duties I'm performing. Am I performing duties like a Brahmana or duty like Sudra? Like that. So basically based on the guna, that means qualities. Based on karma, that means based on the activities or occupation or duties. Based on these two things, we can determine what varna we are in, like that. Predominantly, at least. In Kali Yuga, it's so difficult to figure out that. But predominantly, we can be in one direction at least. And Prabhupada used to commonly say that he is wanting to create a head for the society. Brahmanas are considered like head of the society. Why? Because they give the guidance to society so that they can all go back to service of the Supreme Lord, to situate in the constitutional service, constitutional position, which is service to Supreme Lord, like that. So like that we are trying to do, like that he was describing. So basically based on guna karma, there is no disqualification based on the birth. Devotional service is so wonderful process that all of us, no matter what strengths we have, what kind of weaknesses we have, all of us are eligible for devotional service, and all of them can practice devotional service. That is one important principle we can learn from this verse. Now, Prabhupada goes on to tell that when we are chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, under the direction of a spiritual master, then we're actually chanting without offenses, Prabhupada is saying. That means we need to follow the direction of the spiritual master and try our best not to make offenses, right? Then such chanting can purify the effects of all the previous sins we have done. That's the beauty of holy name. That's the beauty of bhakti process. Because bhakti process can clear all our past karma. Whatever we might have done nonsense, doesn't matter. Either this life or past lives, which we even don't know also. But bhakti will clear them all and purify nicely, like that. So, but the caution is, we need to chant offenselessly, that's described. So, obviously, Prabhupada hints here, doesn't go into detail. There are 10 offenses in the whole chanting of the holy name. Most of you must know. In case you need clarification, we can discuss that also. There are 10 offenses of the holy name. So, first of all, we need to learn what are the offenses first. Offenses to chanting. What does it mean? What are the offenses we need to learn? Once we find out what they are, then we need to understand what does it exactly mean we need to learn. Only when we understand what that exactly mean, then there's a hope that we can avoid them, right? That is very important to avoid them. understand them. Number one point. Number two, His Holiness Sachinandan Swami Maharaj makes a beautiful point. I think about 1 year ago, probably 1 year ago when I went to New Vrindavan, he was making this nice point. He was doing a retreat for a japa, chanting the holy name, but I couldn't join for the retreat. I just went for the 24-hour kirtan at that time. That time he was giving the Bhagavatam class, so I got to hear this point, which is happened to be one of the conclusion class for the whole retreat for them, it seems. That means Maharaj was making the summary points. Then for the 10 offenses, he says 10 defenses, like that, the word he uses. Basically, for example, first offense is to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for the holy name. So the instead of offense, the defense is we need to appreciate devotees. We need to glorify devotees, like that. When we cultivate the positive thing, we need to cultivate is appreciating devotees. Then naturally, blasphemy, criticism will go away. So that is the other recommendation he was giving, because when we are always thinking about something, we may do it actually. I heard this from a devotee one time. Recently, I think also, yeah, they were telling that if I'm thinking about I should not do, I will do it, like that. So, but instead, what is the right thing to do? Positive, if we learn, then we can focus on positive only, absorbing the positive, like that. So that's the principle he was sharing, that 10 offenses to the holy name, from that he converted to 10 defenses, like that. So that's another important principle for us. Chanting should be offenseless. Now somebody may ask, oh my God, I'm doing so many offenses now. Let me stop chanting. That's not what Prabhupada recommends. That's not what our acharyas recommend. Acharyas recommend, no matter how you're chanting, at least chant first. That's the basic foundation for us. Then figure out how to improve chanting, like that. Chanting can go into multiple levels of improvement. But first thing we need to do is every day, sincerely, some fixed number of rounds we need to chant. Maybe you chant every day 2 rounds, maybe you chant 4 rounds every day, 6 rounds, 16 rounds, depending upon wherever we are. But we start fixed number of rounds, consistently we need to chant. Then we can improve them. Whether improve the attention, like quality of the chanting we can improve, or improve the quantity of chanting, number of rounds we can improve. But all the foundation is start chanting something consistently, like that. Again, our mind is tricky. When we hear the statement like this, we should start chanting consistently. Then our mind will say, oh my God, I can only chant 3 days. After that, I will miss it anyway. So I think I should not chant. So we should be careful with our mind. We should understand. Let us say we chant three times, 3 days in a row in the beginning. 4th day we missed it for some reason or the other. It's okay. We can continue from 5th day again, like that. That way, if we regularly chant, what happens is we get the spiritual strength. We get the mercy of Krishna. And with that strength, instead of missing the rounds, let us say we are missing 2 days in a week. Slowly you'll miss only 1 day in a week. Slowly you'll miss 1 day in 2 weeks. Slowly you'll miss 1 day in 1 month. Slowly you'll miss 1 day in a year. Like then we'll slowly become consistent. How is that happening? Because the holy name is so powerful that it will purify us. Because it's purifying us, we'll get to the higher platform called Nishta. So then we can be fixed platform, like that. But initially it is expected. It's not an abnormal phenomena. Nothing wrong for me, with me only we should not think. That is a normal phenomenon, because we have so many impurities now. That's a normal phenomenon initially. But we can, as we continue bhakti nicely, by hearing regularly, chanting regularly, then we can also progress to a stage where we are more consistent, more stable, like that. That's another principle we can learn from this purport. Now, another principle Prabhupada is emphasizing towards the end of the purport is transcendentally the holy name of the Lord and Lord himself are identical, being absolute. The holy name is the Lord is as powerful as the Lord. So this is a very important principle. Of course, I personally don't have so much realization, but we understand it from acharyas. So as we chant the holy name nicely, as we progress in devotional service, we get this realization that how holy name is not different from Krishna. Common example acharyas give in this regard is that commonly we're used to, in the material world, we're used to referring any object with a name. For example, if I refer water, then if I say water words are different, water is different. If I just say water, 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 my thirst will not get quench. But if I drink water only, it will get quench. That is a relative world in the material world like that. But what is the absolute means? The absolute word Prabhupada used here in the spiritual world, in everything related to Krishna, is absolute. In the sense, Krishna and his name are identical, like here is described. Krishna and his pastimes are also having same potency. Krishna and his qualities are also having same potencies. Krishna and his pastimes also, fame also is having same potency, like that is described. So what does that mean? That means if Krishna is there and he can destroy our sins immediately, or he can destroy demons immediately, then same potencies are there in the holy name also. So holy name can do whatever Krishna can do. When we chant with that faith, we can see magic happening in our life. In fact, I was remembering that, what is his name? Patanjali. Patanjali describes sadhana in his Yoga Sutras, it seems. How does he describe? Sadhana means something you do regularly, every day, without fail, number one. Something you do with faith and devotion. While you're doing regularly, you're doing with faith and devotion, that activity. And then you do it for a long period of time. These three things are important. Why long period of time? Usually I have so many impurities from the past. So by doing the same thing for long period of time, then my impurities will go away like that. Then I will get to perfection like that. So the reason I was mentioning is the faith element is very important in our practice of devotion service. So with the faith, we pray. With the faith, we serve the Lord. With faith, we serve the devotees. With the faith, we chant the holy name. With the faith, we hear. With faith, we read scriptures. Then Krishna can do magic in our life, so that we can grow in spiritually like that. That's the other point being made here. That because, and the last point Prabhupada makes is, every devotee of the Lord and incarnations also can be equally surcharged with the potency of the Lord. Since the devotee is surcharged with the potency of the Lord, even fractionally, let's say Krishna gives some potency to the devotee, the disqualification due to lower birth cannot stand in the way. So the logic that people are giving, oh, because of past sinful activity, I got a Sudra birth now. So that means I should suffer in this life as Sudra. Then only next life I can become devotee. That is not right logic. Because holy name is so powerful, it can remove all disqualifications that are there because of the past karma like that. That is the point Prabhupada is making. And the important point is, even devotee is qualified to give us mercy like that, like Krishna. In fact, it is described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in another book called Madhurya Kadambini. It's a small book. In that he describes how Madhyamadhikari Bhakta, he is the one who gives us bhakti. So Krishna has given power of attorney. Like you probably know, power of attorney means, let us say I want to sell the home in India. I give my power of attorney to my mother or my father like that. So they can sign on my behalf and they can sell the home like that. Similarly, Krishna has given the power of attorney to his devotee, so they can give bhakti to others. That's why association of devotees is so powerful. Service of devotees is so powerful. Then we can get bhakti from them like that. So those are a few points from this verse and purport. If anybody has any comments or questions, we can discuss now before we go to the next verse. Okay. No comments, then we can go to the next verse. Let me share my screen again. So we go to the 20th verse. Would one of you like to read this verse? If no one is in position to read, I can read also. Okay, let me read then.
I can read, Prabhuji. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mati, sure. Please go ahead, Mati.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you're joining first time.
Yeah.
Usually we request you, once you read it, you can give a little summary, whatever you understood. It can be short or it can be whatever you understood. You can share also at the end, Mati, after reading.
Okay, Prabhuji, I will try.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Etavatalam nanu suchitena gunairasamya natishayanasya hitveteran prarthayato vibhuti yasyanga grirenu jushate anavipsoho. Okay. Etat was so far alam unnecessary. Suchitena by description, Gunaihi by attributes, Asamya immeasurable, Anati Sayanesya of one who is unexcelled, Hitva leaving aside, Itaran others, Prarthayataha of those who ask for, Vibhuti, favor of the goddess of fortune, Yasya, one whose hungry feet, Renum, thus, Jushate serves, Anabhipso, of one who is unwilling. It is now ascertained that he, the personality of Godhead, is unlimited and that there is none equal to him. Consequently, no one can speak of him adequately. Great demigods cannot obtain the favor of the goddess of fortune even by prayers. But this very goddess renders service unto the Lord, although he is unwilling to have such service. So, Prabhuji, the Bhagavan is.
You can read the purport also, Mati, and then we can.
Okay, purport.
Yeah.
The personality of Godhead or the Parameshwara, Parabrahman, according to the Shrutis, has nothing to do. He has no equal, nor does anyone excel him. He has unlimited potencies, and his every action is carried out systematically in his natural and perfect ways. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is full in himself, and he has nothing to accept from anyone else, including the great demigods like Brahma. Others ask for the favor of the goddess of fortune, and despite such prayers, she declines to award such favors. But still she renders service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he has nothing to accept from her. The personality of Godhead in his Garbhodakshai Vishnu feature begets Brahma, the first created person in the material world, from his navel lotus stem and not in the womb of the goddess of fortune, who is eternally engaged in his service. These are some of the instances of his complete independence and perfection. That he has nothing to do does not mean that he is impersonal. He is transcendentally so full of inconceivable potencies that simply by his willing, everything is done without physical or personal endeavor. He is called, therefore, Yogeshwar, or the Lord of all mystic powers. It's like it says, Prabhuji, there are no words to describe Krishna. He's Anadi, Ananta, Avinashi. His potencies, his form, his leelas, his gun, everything is unlimited potencies, and all the demigods worship him. And in Bhagavad Gita, in Vibhuti Yoga, he talks about everything is him. There is nothing that is not him. He is it. So that's all, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mati. Yeah, so this verse, they continued. Remember, in the last verse, the topic came in the verse itself came, and what to speak of those who are under the direction of the great devotees, chanting the holy name of the unlimited Ananta. That started in the last verse. So that is their continuing here. Sutta Goswami is continuing basically. He's saying that he is unlimited. There's none equal to him. Basically, nobody equal to Supreme Lord, nobody greater than him, like that. That's the point scriptures repeatedly mention, so that we are very clear on that point. Because otherwise people think, oh, Supreme Lord is also one of us. When he comes to Earth planet, he also gets covered by Maya, like that they talk. So that's not true. Krishna is ultimately everything, and no one can equal him, no one can excel him. That is the point. And then one way Sutta Goswami is describing that point is, so demigods are wanting favor from Lakshmi Devi always, but still Lakshmi Devi is not so inclined to give them according to their in response to their prayers. But the same Lakshmi Devi, even though Supreme Lord doesn't want any service from her, she wants to serve him. So that is the nature of Supreme Lord is describing like that. That one example is given to confirm how Supreme Lord is so great like that. Commonly, Sri Rupada writes in the Srimad Bhagavatam purports many places. That is why we should worship not Lakshmi alone, but Lakshmi with Narayana or Radha Krishna like that. Always. Now, if you only worship Lakshmi Devi, because she's Chanchala, she'll come for some time and go away like that. But if you worship Lakshmi Narayana together, then because Narayana is there, Lakshmi wants to be with Narayana only. So she doesn't go anywhere like that. That's the other way Prabhupada describes also this point. Now, another point being described here is how Supreme Lord is independent and perfect. One example Prabhupada gives in the purport is how Supreme Lord doesn't need a wife to produce a child like that. With the example of Lord Brahma is giving. From Garbhodaksha Vishnu, when he's lying down on the Garbhodaka ocean, from his navel comes a lotus flower. From the lotus flower, inside the lotus flower, Brahma is born. So he didn't have to contact Lakshmi Devi to produce Brahma like that. Just from his body, Brahma Deva came. Like that, Prabhupada is describing to indicate his complete independence and perfection like that. And then somebody may say, okay, is he impersonal? Because everything is done just by his desiring. So everything can be taken care of. Is he impersonal? No, he's personal also. At the same time, he has so many inconceivable potencies. With so many potencies, everything is happening in the world, whatever he wants like that. He doesn't have to monitor it. Is it happening why they want? He doesn't need to monitor. Whatever he desires, it can happen. But it's happening through his potencies. That's what is described here also. That's why it's called Yogeshwara, or the Lord of all mystic powers. Simply by this willing, everything is done. That's why it's called as Yogeshwara, like that is describing. So, the previous verse was talking about chanting the holy name of the unlimited, how it can remove all disqualifications, like that he described. Now he's describing who is the unlimited, how great is the unlimited, like that is described in this particular verse. We'll continue the next verse. Unless anybody has any comments on this verse, comments or questions before we go to the next verse. Okay, then we can go to the next verse, 21st verse. Is somebody in position to read 21st verse? Okay, if not, I can read next. 21st verse. Atapi yatpada nakavasrishtam jagat virinchopahritar hanambaha shesham punati anyatamo mukundat ko nama loke bhagavat padartaha. Ata, therefore, api, certainly, yat, whose, padanaka, nails of the feet, avasrishtam, emanating, jagat, the whole universe, virincha, Brahmaji, upahrita, collected, arhana, worship, ambaha, water, sa, along with, isam, Lord Shiva, punati, purifies, anyatamaha, who else, mukundat, besides the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, kaha, who, nama, name, loke, within the world, Bhagavat, Supreme Lord, pada, position, artaha, worth, translation, purport by Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Translation, who can be worthy of the name of the Supreme Lord, but the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Brahmaji collected the water emanating from the nails of his feet in order to award it to Lord Shiva as a worshipful welcome. This very water, the Ganges, is purifying the whole universe, including Lord Shiva. So it's glorifying Supreme Lord by referring to uh, the collection of water coming touching from the nails of the lotus feet of Krishna. Let's read the purport. The conception of many gods in the Vedic literatures by the ignorant is completely wrong. The Lord is one without a second, but he expands himself in many ways, and this is confirmed in the Vedas. Such expansions of the Lord are limitless, but some of them are the living entities. The living entities are not as powerful as the Lord's plenary expansions. And therefore, there are two different types of expansions. Lord Brahma is generally one of the living entities, and Lord Shiva is the via medium between the Lord and the living entities. In other words, even demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, who are the chief amongst all demigods, are never equal to or greater than Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and all powerful demigods like Brahma and Shiva are engaged in the worship of Vishnu or Lord Krishna. Therefore, who can be more powerful than Mukunda, Lord Krishna, to be factually called the Supreme Personality of Godhead? One second. Yeah. I'm just underlining something. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Ji, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva are not independently powerful. They are powerful as expansions of Supreme Lord, and all of them are engaged in the transcendental, loving service of the Lord, and so also are the living entities. There are four sects of worshipful devotees of the Lord, and the chief amongst them are the Brahma Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, and Sri Sampradaya, descending directly from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, respectively. Besides the above mentioned three Sampradayas, there is a Kumara Sampradaya, descending from Sanat Kumara. All of the four original Sampradayas are still scrupulously engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord up to date, and they all declare that Lord Krishna Mukunda is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no other personality is equal to him or greater than him. Okay, wonderful purport. Remember, this whole section is about glorifying the Supreme Lord. Suta Goswami, before he describes for some more pastimes about Parishit Maharaj and how Parishit Maharaj is going to meet Sukadeva Goswami shortly in a couple of chapters. He's glorifying the Supreme Lord again. So in this verse, what is glorifying specifically? He's saying, who can be worthy of calling himself a Supreme Personality of Godhead other than Krishna? Because Brahmaji worshipping him, Shivaji is worshipping him, all the other demigods are worshipping him. So then he is a Supreme Lord, like that is said. One example is given in the verse itself, is that when is described when Supreme Lord as Vamandev, he pierced the universe when he was making the third step, right? Two steps. First step was the whole universe here, and the second step was the upper planetary systems also. So then, that time when he pierced the layers of the universe, some Ganges water came, it seems. That Ganges water, Brahmaji is collected in this Kamandalu, like that is described. And then he gave it to Lord Shiva is described. Of course, we know another pastime from 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that will come up later on, wherein Ganges has another history, how it came. Bhagirath brought the Ganges in the line of Sagara kings, he comes like that. That's another description also given. Past also is given. Means another past time also is given how Ganges comes in Srimad Bhagavatam. So then this this very water of Ganges is purifying the whole world, including Lord Shiva. Why is this purifying Ganges is so powerful? Because it's touched by the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. That is the key point here. That's why he is giving this example like that. So, and then Supreme Lord has many expansions. Some of them are plenary expansions called, that means they are almost same potencies as Krishna, like that, like a different Vishnu forms, Kurma Avatara, Matsya Avatara, like that. And then another is some living entities are empowered, like we call them in the first canto, third chapter, I believe, we heard about Shakti Avash Avatara. That means one of the Jiva is empowered to with certain potency to act on behalf of Supreme Lord. Like Prithu Maharaj was given the ruling potency or Palana potency. Narada Muni has given Bhakti potency, so he can make everybody, anybody and everybody Bhakta like that. So like that, Jiva is empowered. In this example, purport, Prabhupada is describing Lord Brahma, how he was given the power to create, to do secondary creation of the universe like that. So Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are able to do those functions because they derive the power from the Supreme Lord only. That is the point here made. And then, yeah, there's another point made here. And then they are all worshipping. Lakshmi Devi also, Brahma also, Shiva is also worshipping. Now the way Prabhupada concludes is interesting. Not only we are saying this point, but the four authorized bona fide Vaishnava Sampradayas, they also accept that Supreme Lord is Krishna, Mukunda, like that is described. And no other personality is equal to him or greater than him, like that. What are the four Vaishnava Sampradayas? We discussed it previously also. Basically, some from Krishna, the knowledge goes to Brahmadev, and Brahma to Narada, Narada to Vyasa, like that. That is our line of Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Similarly, other Sampradayas coming from Lakshmi Devi, that's called Sri Sampradaya. Another bona fide Sampradaya is coming from Lord Shiva, that's called Rudra Sampradaya. And the Sampradaya that's coming from Kumaras, basically, whose name? Sankarsana gave it to knowledge to Kumaras. From them, it's called Kumara Sampradaya, like that. So, like that, those four Sampradayas also accept that Supreme Lord is none other than Krishna, like that is describing. So, basically, this verse is essentially glorifying Krishna's unparalleled position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead above all the demigods, like that. So, another thing you might have noticed here, Prabhupada writes in the purport that Lord Brahma is also a living entity. Of course, he's a very great living entity. And especially in this, for this universe, he's a pure devotee also. He's the head of our Sampradaya. But then, Lord Shiva is not a living entity. Lord Shiva is of tattva of its own, is described. Is neither Supreme Lord himself in one sense, nor Jiva, like that. But is a different category altogether. Brahma Samhita describes how Shiva is like a yogurt, whereas Supreme Lord is like a milk, like that is described. So it's simultaneously different in one sense and not different in another sense also. Like that also is described by devotees and scriptures actually. Shiv Tattva is very complex, but these are few things we can understand easily about Lord Shiva also. And we also know Lord Shiva is a wonderful devotee of Krishna also, we know. So there's a few points on this verse. Anybody has any comments on this verse before we comments or questions before we go to the next verse? Okay, so we're still glorifying the Supreme Lord. Let's go to the next verse. I'll share my screen. We go to the next verse, 22nd verse. Someone would like to read the 22nd verse? Okay, otherwise I can read also. 22nd verse will go. Yatra anurakta sahasaiva dhira vyapohya dehadishu sangam udham vrajanti tatparama hamsyam antyam yasmin ahimsopasamasva dharmaha. Word for word meaning? Yatra, unto whom, anuraktaha, firmly attached, sahasa, all of a sudden, eva, certainly, dhiraha, self-controlled, vyapohya, leaving aside, Deha, the gross body, and subtle mind. Adishu, relating to. Sangam, attachment. Udham, taken to. Brajanti, go away. Tat, that. Paramahamsyam, the highest stage of perfection. Antyam, and beyond that. Yasmin, in which? Ahimsa, non-violence. Upasamaha, and renunciation. Swadharmaha, consequential occupation. Translation and purport by Sri Prabhupada. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Self-controlled persons who are attached to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna can all of a sudden give up the world of material attachment, including the gross body and the subtle mind, and go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life, by which non-violence and renunciation are consequential. Interesting verse. So now let's go to the purport. Only the self-control can gradually be attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Interesting way to start the purport, Prabhupada. Self-control means not indulging in sense enjoyment more than is necessary. And those who are not self-controlled are given over to sense enjoyment. Dry philosophical speculation is a suitable sense enjoyment of the mind. Sense enjoyment leads one to the path of darkness. Those who are self-controlled can make progress on the path of liberation from the conditional life of material existence. The Vedas therefore enjoin then what should not go on the path of darkness, but should make a progressive march towards the path of light or liberation. Self-control is actually achieved not by artificially stopping the senses from material enjoyment, but by becoming factually attached to the Supreme Lord, by engaging one's unalloyed senses in the transcendental service of the Lord. Interesting. Okay, we'll discuss this point. So the senses cannot be forcibly curbed, but they can be given proper engagement. Purified senses, therefore, are always engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. This perfectional stage of sense engagement is called Bhakti Yoga. So those who are attached to the means of Bhakti Yoga are factually self-controlled and can all of a sudden give up their homely or bodily attachment for the service of the Lord. This is called the Paramahamsa stage. Hamsas are swans. Accept, let me underline this one. Hamsas are swans accept only milk out of a mixture of milk and water. Similarly, those who accept the service of the Lord instead of Maya's service are called Paramahamsas. Wow, nice explaining. They are naturally qualified with all the good attributes such as pridelessness, freedom from freedom from vanity, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, respectability, worship, devotion, and sincerity. All these godly qualities exist in the devotee of the Lord spontaneously. Such Paramahamsas who are completely given up to the service of the Lord are very rare. They are very rare even amongst the liberated souls. Real non-violence means freedom from envy. In this world, everyone is envious of his fellow being, but a perfect Paramahamsa, being completely given up to the service of the Lord, is perfectly non-envious. He loves every living being in relation with the Supreme Lord. Real renunciation means perfect dependence on God. Actually, everyone is dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. But when one forgets his relation with the Lord, he becomes dependent on the conditions of the material nature. Renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the conditions of material nature and thus becoming completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Real independence means complete faith in the mercy of the Lord without dependence on the conditions of the matter. This Paramasa stage is the highest perfection stage in Bhakti Yoga, the process of devotion service to the Supreme Lord. Wonderful. So we'll discuss this briefly. So again, the section is about glorifying the Supreme Lord. Here, this particular verse is describing how dhira, the word is used. Dhira, self-control, like that. How dhiras are the people who can be firmly attached to Krishna, like that. So the verse itself says, self-controlled persons are dhiras who are attached to Sadhan, attached to Supreme Lord, can give up at material attachment is saying, including the body and gross body and subtle mind, like that. And they can renounce everything to attain the perfection of the highest perfection of renounced order of life. What is the highest perfection of renounced order of life? Described Prabhupada here. In the verse also the word is called Paramahamsa. That's the highest renounced order, like that. By which non-violence and renunciation are consequential. Okay, interesting sequence of things. So ideally, one has to be self-controlled or a dhira. Through that, he can develop attachment to Supreme Lord. Okay, and because of attachment to Supreme Lord, they can develop detachment from material things, material world, like that. And through this attachment to Supreme Lord, they get the highest perfection of the Paramamsa stage, sannyas stage. And then when they get to the highest perfection stage, because of their devotion service itself, they develop all the good qualities, such as non-violence and renunciation, like that. So if you take out all this thing, simple thing is, if you do devotional service nicely, we can be self-controlled, because of sense control can be done by positive engagement of senses to service of Krishna. That is one point. And by doing devotional service, we develop attachment to Krishna. When we develop attachment to Krishna, then we naturally develop detachment for material things and material ambitions, material motivations, like that. And that is another principle. And by engaging in the devotional service with attachment to Krishna, we will also develop all good qualities that are pleasing to Krishna. So the key is to do devotional service towards Krishna. That is the key here. So now nicely Prabhupada is explaining few points. We'll discuss them. One is that the best way to become self-control is not to stop engaging, not to see anything, not to hear anything. I'll close my ears, I'll close my eyes, I'll not eat anything nice. Not like that. That is the Gnani's way of progressing in. But for Bhaktas, we do everything to serve Krishna, like that. We eat nice prasadam that is already offered to Krishna, we accept it. We see nice things about Krishna. We hear about nice Krishna Katha. Like we offer, we accept flower that is offered to Krishna to smell it in the morning after Aarti. Like that, we engage our senses in Krishna service. Through that, we can develop a nice self-control. Otherwise, we try whatever way we want, it's very hard to do that. That is the main point being made here in the beginning of the purport. Now, next point is Paramsa stage. Okay. The highest stage of Bhakti Yoga is Paramasa stage is describing. Remember, you might remember, this is given in 5th canto, I think. Prabhupada in one of the Srimad Bhagavatam purports, he describes the 4 different stages of sannyas order. The way he describes is, first is Kuti Chaka, then Bahudaka, then Parivrajaka, then Paramamsa, like that. 4 different stages he describes. So Kuti Chaka stage of sannyasi is somebody who is living in the family in the home along with the family for now. They go out of the village is described, but they still get the food from their home only. They're living away from the family outside the village, but they made arrangements so that food will come from the home only, like that. That is Kutichaka, stage of sannyasa. Next is Bahudaka. Bahudaka stage of sannyasa is now they don't get the food anymore from the home, but instead they get it from by begging from home to home, like Madhukari, like that. Then next stage of sannyas is called Parivrajaka Acharya stage means that they go around preaching everywhere like that. That is the third stage. And then fourth stage is Paramahansa stage, where they sit at one place and they practice to advance the spiritual life nicely like that. That's the highest stage like that. So that's what is described as Paramahansa stage here. And a nice way Prabhupada describes Paramahamsa, I defined it also here by explaining the analogy of Hamsa. Hamsa means swan. Swan, what is one of the good qualities we hear is that, let us say we give a mixture of milk and water in one bowl to it. Apparently, we drink all milk, it seems, from the mixture, and only water will remain. Human beings, we cannot make out really, or we cannot even separate them out. But swan has a special skill that Krishna gave, so that way it can drink milk and leave water like that in the bowl. Similarly, Prabhupada is writing here that Parahamsas are like devotees who accept only the service of the Lord and reject the Maya service like that. They are called Parahamsas, like accepting milk, rejecting water like that Swan is doing, accepting service of the Lord, rejecting Maya service like that. That's what Prabhupada is describing Parahamsa nicely in this purport. Another point he makes is that when somebody as a Parahamsa is engaged nicely in service of God, then he's perfectly non-envious. He loves everybody because he sees everybody in relation to Krishna like that. And then he develops real qualities, including the real renunciation, which is the complete dependence on the Lord like that. That's why sannyasi is not ordinary. We take up sannyas only when we develop full dependence on the Lord like that, instead of depending on my bank balance, this, that, like that. For our growth stage, that is important for us. We need to maintain some bank balance so that we can take care of emergency fund like that. We can take care of children's education. We can take care of our our retirement, for example. For us, that is important. But somebody who takes sannyas ashram, for them, that is not important anymore. Because they're depending fully on Krishna. Krishna will take care of whatever is needed like that. But for our stage, we need to do our duties nicely so that we can endeavor from outside, but depend on Krishna still like that. So essentially, this verse was telling us that those who are dhiras or self-control can only develop attachment to Krishna. And actually, by developing bhakti, we can become self-control. We can also develop attachment to Krishna and detachment to the world also. And all good qualities will come like that. We don't need to look somewhere else to get something outside bhakti. Bhakti is all encompassing, all in one, like that. So those are a few thoughts. Any comments or questions on this verse from anybody?
So, Prabhuji, one question I have is, we have literature of Paramahansas. We have few of them, right? From what's the word? So, like Paramahansa, Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and So, does that mean only very few become Paramahansa, or they are bestowed title by their Guru Maharaj? How does that?
Very nice question. Generally, Paramsa is not just a title. Paramsa is a stage of consciousness of devotee. Somebody who is at a higher stage, even though somebody may not be called Paramsa in the title, but they may still be having the consciousness of Paramsa. Krishna recognizes like that. That's number one point. Number two, what I heard about Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is that he was not a part of a bona fide sampradaya. Remember, we heard in the previous verse how there are 4 bona fide sampradayas. He was not part of the bona fide sampradayas, even though he has the title of Paramahamsa like that. So, devotee means devotee of Supreme Lord and practicing in one of the 4 sampradayas like that. That's the other thing we hear. So, there are so many pure devotees who are the highest stage of devotion service. Even though they might have not titles, but our Prabhupada books is at the highest stage of devotion. We can just see, not because of somebody's words, We can see he wrote these books so many years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. We're reading it, we're benefiting from his association right now. And we're getting inspired. Oh, Bhakti is the best. I need to chant nicely. I need to hear nicely. We're getting inspired today also. That is a proof, generally proof of the pudding is in eating it, let's say, right? Like that. So many devotees are made by hearing Prabhupada classes, by reading Prabhupada literature, like that. So we have wonderful access to our acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commentary, Jiva Goswami's commentary, Rupa Goswami's books. These are wonderful books we can learn from. Now, starting with Prabhupada books first. Does it make sense, Mati?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Welcome, Mati. Anybody else has any other comments or questions? If not, we can continue.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have one question.
Yes,
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. Actually, how do you face a situation when somebody claims as Paramahamsa, in the conversation, but actually we don't want to disrespect them. Neither I don't want to have any opinion on, so when they express themselves as Paramahamsa. How should I, make sure that I don't commit any offense, by judging them when somebody claims themselves as Paramahamsa?
Okay. So when somebody is talking to you, they say, I'm Paramahamsa, like that.
Yes,
How
I
to
meant
deal with them?
Paramahamsa. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Then we can, generally, Paramahamsa means the highest form of devotee, right? That's what we just read from purport just now.
Paramahamsa or Parivrajakacharya. If they claim themselves as Parivrajakacharya.
Sure.
Yes,
That's
Prabhuji.
okay. Yeah, definitely. First of all, what is our role in that relationship? What is that we are trying to do with the relationship with that person? First, that should be our main thread between our relationship. First, our consciousness, like that, number one. Then these things will get sorted out. Like, let us say somebody says, I'm Parivrajakacharya. Okay. So what is there for me? Now question arises, somebody is such a great saintly personality. What are we supposed to do? We take association of saintly personality, right? Now it's important for us to assess, is he such a saintly personality to take shelter or not? For that we find out, is he in a sampradaya? Is he following a bona fide sampradaya? Number one. Then is his qualities like Paramahamsa? Is he acting, his behavior is like Paramahamsa? Like that we can observe. Then based on that, we can understand if somebody is such a high person or not. Because Bhagavad Gita, that's a question Arjuna asked, right? How does a person sits? How does a person such as Sthita Prajna sits, talks, stands, like that, like the walks, like that he talks about, right? Those the purpose is that only. When we understand the qualities of great saintly personality, for example, Bhagavatam has this verse called Titikshava Karunika. Basically, such a great saintly person, first of all, is very tolerant, and then is very compassionate, like that. Then we can observe these qualities. If they have those qualities, potentially they may be Paramahamsa, and if they should be coming in a proper sampradaya, and their speech also should align with the Guru Sadhu Shastra. Remember the 3-point check we have when they're speaking something. What are they speaking? Is it aligning with what I heard from my Guru? What I read in scripture? If it's aligning, then we accept it. Otherwise, we don't accept it. Like, we stay away. We don't need to prove them that you are a cheater, you are not a Paramsa. We don't need to prove. Unless Prabhupada writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, unless everybody is getting fooled because of him telling Paramsa like that, you want to benefit them, and you have the capacity to prove that, then you can do it as a service only. Not to prove that, yeah, see, I'm going to defeat him. Not like that in that mode. But only in a service mode. If others are getting misled because of that, and we have the capacity to do so, then we can prove them to be wrong, like that. But they themselves may not accept what we say. So that's only done for others' sake, like that. When somebody is in such a mood that I am a Parivrajakacharya, then we cannot usually touch them because they're already at that platform. Either they're really there, or with the pride they're saying like that. So we cannot really convince them in any way. That is clear. Only we can save ourselves and save others by staying away or like that.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much for clarity.
Recommend. Okay. Any other last comment or question before we end? If there's anything. If not, we can continue next week. Okay, we can continue next week. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Pasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. We'll see you next week. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.